Hello! Thanks for joining us for Season 2, Episode 1 of the Cerulean Skies RPG podcast. This is a weekly event that aims to be a mix of produced podcasting and live stream discussions. We always encourage folks to engage with these talks, whether it be in the live chat, on the Discord, or through other aspects of social media. We stream these live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can find the VODs on our YouTube or audio on just about any music or podcast streaming platform, even though, you know what, fuck Spotify, but, you know, it's up there. So let's address the elephant in the room. It's me. I've gained like 10 pounds. But no, this is the season 2 of this RPG podcast. It's been about a year since we did it, and this is sort of our soft reboot with some hard lads. So I'm your host, Joey, and today I'm joined by Sunset.
Hello.
And Dylan.
What's up, everyone?
And as we always try to do with new contributors to the show, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite RPGs to get a feel for each other's preferences. But our main topic tonight, however, is going to be games or series that slipped by us, whether intentionally or entropically. Did we get into them later? Do we think they hit differently now than they would at the time of their release? I don't know, man. It's that sort of thing. So, but before we get started, actually, usually I say both of you are new to this podcast, but Dylan has been on here before, so you know the game. So I'll save you for later. Sunset, tell us about your internet presence. Where might we know you from other than arguing with idiots on Twitter?
So I used to stream on Twitch a lot. I'm trying to get back into that at some point, like soon. But Sunset Miami _ it used to be Sunset Miami Arcade, but like I took the arcade part off, like to just get like a fresh start. But like, yeah, Sunset Miami _ that's my Twitter handle. That's my Twitch handle. And that's pretty much where I'm at. I don't really get on like Instagram that much anymore or anything like that. So,
Nice.
So yeah, that's where people would know me from.
Hell yeah. It's funny because I think we were talking about this before the show, actually, but I've never seen somebody catch as much weird shit from people on the internet as you. It's like, dude, people are just hounding you constantly. It's
Dude,
so funny.
It's so weird, man. Like and like you know, I kind of play it up a little bit on Twitter, like, you know, just throw out some wild takes every once in a while, but you know, it's a little bit of fun, but then sometimes you're just like, okay, I don't know, I don't even want to tweet today because if it blows up, I don't want to deal with it.
It's
like I just don't.
I get it. It's not even like you're like, you know, inflammatory or anything either, because I think
No.
I met you because I disagreed with you about Dark Souls 2, and we were like, yeah, okay, well, we like this part of it. And I was like, this guy's cool. You know, it was like a friendly, cordial discussion. So it's not like you're some fucking giant prick, which would be sick if you were, but, you know, alas.
Right.
And Dylan, sorry. So you've been on here before,
Yeah,
but remind us who you are. And also, because you've been on here before, I need you to maybe hit me with an RPG that you've added to your plate since your last being on here.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Dylan. I'm Dylan at the Dilla on Twitter. And I mean, really, I guess I'm like involved in a handful of podcasts, some of which are on hiatus. But I guess like really, I'm just kind of known for knowing people on the internet. So yeah, I mean, like, you know, I'd like to think I'm a pretty chill dude. But yeah, as far as like games that I have played since the last recording, this was closer to the beginning of the year, but I got like pretty deep into a couple of the Shiren the Wanderer games. Yeah, like those games kind of caught me off guard because I'm not really a roguelike player. I loved Downwell, and I like Hades all right, but like they're not really for me. I like completely sunk into Shiren though. I think like maybe the abstraction of turn-based combat kind of elevated it for me, and like the unique variety of like weapons and loot drops and all that. The RPG mechanics being more prevalent, I guess, really kind of sold me on it.
Hell yeah, yeah. The new one for Switch, I haven't picked it up yet, but I
It's
was
pretty solid.
it looks cool. I actually, since funny enough, since last year, I started picking up a couple DS games that I didn't get at the time, and one of them was the Sheeran DS. I think the Switch version is a remake of that, right, or like a port or something.
So there are two games out on the Switch currently, Sheeran 5 and Sheeran 6. I
Oh,
think
okay.
Sheeran 5 is like it is a enhanced port of one of the Japan exclusive DS games.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, no, the Sheeran 1 remake is the only one that the States got on the DS. I hear it also tweaks the difficulty quite a bit. So I've been playing the Super Nintendo version of the original game, and Joey, when I say like I haven't made it past like halfway through the dungeon and I'm on like my like 55th try, like that game is brutal.
Jeez, yeah, that's
um the,
ooh.
That's why
the
I can't handle roguelikes.
that's super fair. The Switch version is a lot easier at onboarding. It has an in-game bestiary. It's got shortcuts that you can take after, if you reach past a certain point on a run. There are certainly more incentives for jumping back in to make the grind seem less insurmountable.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. So would you so now one of the things that we always do at the beginning of this podcast is we talk a little bit about our favorite RPGs just to kind of get a feel for each
Yeah.
other's preferences and all that kind of stuff, obviously. So would you say that Sheeran is encroaching?
I feel like it's rapidly getting up there. Even as someone who's like kind of been bashing their head against the wall with the Super Nintendo version, there's something about it that's like weirdly bespoke. Um it's I mean, a lot of that's the atmosphere, like the art assets. It's arguably Koichi Sugiyama's best work because it's not fucking trumpets all the time.
Man, you said I was so into it, and then you said
No, I
Sugiyama.
said Sugiyama. Listen. I'm just hear me out. Watch the intro cutscene to Sheeran the Wanderer on Super Nintendo. Also, the one on Switch. It's not him for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean,
uh,
luckily.
if that's any incentive to check that one out, gonna throw that in there. But no, because I mean, I like Sugiyama when he's. I don't like Sugiyama the person. Very important
Oh, yeah.
distinction I have to make real quick. But I like Sugiyama's music when I hear it orchestral. I'm not checking chat. Did someone say something?
No,
Or
I said I hope
No.
not.
Oh, got you. No, fuck that old man.
Hell yeah.
But no, I like some of his like the Tokyo Metropolitan arrangements of some of his stuff is like pretty good, I think. But like Sheeran the Wanderer is like the first time I heard his music in the game, and I was like, oh, I just straight up fuck with this. It's kind of more somber, more melancholic, like far cry from what he does on Dragon Quest.
Yeah, that's interesting because that sounds. I actually like Dragon Quest Six's soundtrack the most. I think that's the best, and I realize that like it's because of a lot of those tracks were either things that he didn't arrange or didn't even fully compose. So that makes a lot of sense in its own right. So yeah, what about you, Sunset man? What are some of your top? What are your heavy hitters?
I mean, my heavy hitters for RPGs are mainly Final Fantasy, Xenogears now. Let's see, Mass Effect. I know mostly we're talking about like JRPGs and stuff like that, but Mass Effect for one, like I played that trilogy for the first time last year, and it's one of the best trilogies of video games I've ever played in my life. But yeah, like my heavy hitters are Final Fantasy, Xenogears, Lufia or Lufia. I don't know how people say it,
I think it's Lufia.
but that's a really good one.
Yeah, I've always, like it's Dopolis in Japanese, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, for real?
yeah. It's called
No,
Estopolis, and yeah.
But yeah,
We're
like
streaming that one too.
yeah, and like Oblivion,
Hell yeah.
Elder Scrolls 4. It's like one of my favorite games of all time. So yeah, big Final Fantasy guy.
Mhm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Which is your favorite Mass Effect?
2.
Oh, okay, word, yeah.
100% 2.
Mhm.
Dylan, did you play Mass Effect?
I didn't have an Xbox growing up, and when Mass Effect 2 came out on PS3, I don't know. I feel like something else was like stealing my attention at the time, so I never got around to those games. I might loop back. I don't know if it's worth it because I hear that Mass Effect 3 is like such a wet
It's
fart.
still worth it. It's still worth it. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
I think it. Wait, did you play Andromeda also?
I got like 15 hours into Andromeda, and then I was like, I'm burnt out on this shit. I'm
That's
so
just
burnt
good.
out. I was so burnt out on that.
I know some people who tapped out sooner for less.
Mhm, yeah.
So I got lucky and I didn't play it until way after. So I didn't play Andromeda until I want to say a couple weeks before the Legendary Edition came out. And because I played Mass Effect when it was just coming out, and I just for some reason I kind of skipped Andromeda. I got it when it released, Andromeda, but I got maybe through the intro, and I said to myself, I'll play this later. I heard that it's glitchy or whatever, and it probably
I've done that with so
was.
many games.
Yeah, that's the subject of the podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, damn, I wanted to use it as a segue, but it's not good enough yet because I still want to probe you. But yeah, no, I do you fuck with the other BioWare RPGs at all? Sunset, like Jade Empire or anything?
I have not played any BioWare RPGs except for Dragon Age Origins, Inquisition, and the Mass Effect. I've played little bits and pieces because I used to work at a video game store, so I would like mess around with games all day and whatever else. But yeah, those are the only BioWare RPGs that I've ever played, and I eventually want to go back and play like the ones that I'm interested in, specifically Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh yeah,
Which was was that BioWare?
It was, yeah, it was.
It was. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Specifically Knights of the Old Republic I want to try. But yeah, I completely missed a lot of like all of the BioWare stuff.
Damn, that's
So
a shame because like, well, not really a shame, but there's so many solid games that they were putting out. Dragon Age Origins, Baldur's Gate. They technically did the first two Baldur's Gates.
yeah.
It's so good. Knights of the Old Republic is an all timer, and I think I get associated with JRPGs so often that like I think people forget that Mass Effect 1 is like one of my favorite games of all time. So it hurts my soul. It hurts my soul.
Be reduced to this.
I'm not.
Sorry about that. I had to let my cat out.
You're all good. I saw her doing something. So we're
Yeah.
But Trashylvania in the chat says he's an Andromeda apologist, and I kind of am too. I wouldn't say it's great, but I think I liked the premise of it a lot. I just think it was so fucking focus grouped. It was a game that was just focus grouped into being a little bit mediocre, and they wanted to do an open world kind of thing, and it ended up being very safe, very sterile. You get to run around the same 4 ruins and do a fucking annoying puzzle 37,000 times in the game. That sucks. But I don't know, there's like something about the sense of adventure in a new galaxy that kind of hits, and being so many, what is it, like almost it's centuries removed from the original trilogy.
I think 100
something
100 years maybe.
Right.
Maybe it's probably more. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's like, and I forget details like that all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly what Rio said. Yeah, people come to Mass Effect for the puzzles. Yeah, or the shitty like mobile game puzzles. That's what we play those for.
So I didn't run into any of that in the Legendary Edition. I don't know if they took a lot of that stuff out, but I didn't have to like do hardly any lock picking or like whatever.
No. Yeah, they streamlined it a little though. They did streamline some of that stuff.
That's probably why I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, I was specifically talking about Andromeda. Like Andromeda has a bunch of dumb idiot puzzles that just like fucking ruin it. But Mass Effect 1, the only real mini game you play in Mass Effect 1 is the inventory management. And they streamlined that a lot in the Legendary Edition. I think for the better. For sure. But there's something about the crusty original Mass Effect 1 that I kind of prefer. You know, I don't know, like they made the cover mechanics more fluid, and it's definitely better, but it's a kind of FF12 situation where the Zodiac Age is something I'd much rather play, but the vision of the original is kind of awesome, and very few games stuck to their guns the way that game did.
I definitely agree with that on 12. I love the Zodiac Age, but man, I want to play the original again at some point.
I got the PS3 version because I 100%ed them on Xbox when they were coming out, and I got the PS3 versions that I haven't played, and I look at it at my shelf sometimes and I think, what if?
Right.
What if I did that? So Dylan, best BioWare game, go.
Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
Hell yeah, bro! Oh, that piece. I played through that whole piece of shit. I bring this up a lot. But I played through the whole thing, and it started as kind of a meme because I was doing like a Sonic scrimblow and I needed something to play like in bed. Although, you know, that's not the thing that you play in bed, because that's what you play in bed when you're sexless. Because, you know, you just pick up that 3D. That's like the most sexless video game I think ever. The sound of it, the music, the look, the gameplay, it's horrendous. And
that is a crunchy game.
It is.
I've watched a video on how bad people say that video game is. Like, I've watched a video on it.
Right. Okay. So
it seems very interesting.
That's one of those games where I completely abandon the notions of you might want to play it before having an opinion on. You know, it's one of those games you don't need to really play. You watch 20 minutes of gameplay. You watch 2 minutes of gameplay. You got it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You listen to a sample from one of those world or city tracks, and you know you're good. You're good to go, bro. That's the experience, and it doesn't change or get better. And I ended up just sunk cost fallacy-ing it. It was just for that, you know. I'd play it at night, and I was like, Jesus, am I halfway through the game? You know, am I just gonna do this? But so you missed out on Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. Our big topic this evening is basically games that we missed out on or just kind of slipped by us, right? And I think this is a pretty interesting topic as a whole because, Sunset, I've seen that you mentioned Mass Effect and the trilogy, and you were playing Xenogears, and you and I were talking about a couple things that we missed out on before on Twitter. And Dylan, I remember, I think like basically holding you at gunpoint and telling you to play Tactics Ogre Reborn. And
phenomenal.
Yeah, hell yeah. So there are a lot of titles, like for better or worse, that get passed by, you know, and it's sometimes not a fault of our own. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a preference thing. Sometimes it's a timing thing. Sometimes your whole family gets killed.
Sometimes your whole family gets killed.
Right, you know, shit happens.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like if I found out that like my wife and kids were murdered, I'd probably fire up Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. You know,
that's the depression game.
right.
My sister's dying words where you have to beat.
It's for literacy.
Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
Hell yeah!
Amazing.
So the big question is, how often do you find yourself playing RPGs later, quote unquote later, than most enthusiasts? And do you think playing them out of time affects your perception? Dylan, we'll start with you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really struggling to think of an RPG that I played when it came out in its heyday. Like, the only one I can think of is that can't be it. the main one I'm thinking of is Tales of the Abyss. I also played Final Fantasy 13 when it came out. I played Final Fantasy. I started Final Fantasy 12 when it came out. And ironically enough, Dylan lore here, I hated it when it first came out.
I feel that.
It wasn't until I revisited it at the end of high school that I really found an appreciation for it. To the point where now it's one of my greatest hyperfixations. You know.
Great.
Yeah, no, I think I also there are some games I played Persona 5 when it came out and Final Fantasy 15, but when I think of my favorite games, they're usually the games I came back to after like, yeah, what was the deal with that game? Let me check it out. Like kind of
Mhm.
revise my thoughts on it. So, yeah, that's my answer.
So do you find that you said that that's like those are the only titles that you really played at release or whatever?
Yeah. Where I was like locked in and not immediately distracted by some other game release.
Okay, interesting. So does it happen often where you'll start a game then and then go back to it years later?
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like as far as like how I approach video games, I'm like very unstructured. Like in high school, I think that was the peak of the time when I could like get a new game and just like lock in. Um, but I think before and after that, I usually like to bounce between anywhere from like 2 to 4 games. And like sometimes I'll switch a game out of the rotation, sometimes I'll go back to it. But I don't know. I like that variety. Um, it's nice to play Final Fantasy VII when I was 12 years old, but then also be like, all right, I need a change, and then like pop in Sonic Adventure too.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sunset, how about you? Broad strokes on this issue. Do you find yourself going back, or do you find yourself playing RPGs later than I think most people who are into the genre do?
Uh, Absolutely, because like for as much of an RPG fan as I have been, and like dabbled with other series, I pretty much just stuck with Final Fantasy when it came out. Like I would buy every new release that it came out on, and I would just play those forever, basically. And I'm big into like speed running, so I didn't really branch outside of Final Fantasy as much as I would have liked to, just because I would sit there and play Final Fantasy VIII and try to get through it as fast as I could.
Mhm.
But like the entire Tales series, I pretty much missed out on, except for Tales of Fantasia, which was a phenomenal game. I played a fan translation of that when I was in
Yeah.
high school, I think. And then um, like Star Ocean, I missed out on that, but I've played like 3 of those games at this point. So I and then Xenogears. It took me 24 years to beat Xenogears. That's how I say it, because I started it when it came out. I got it in like 1999, and I played it, and I stopped at disc 2 because the people online on the GameFAQs forums were like, don't play disc 2. They're like, just don't bother with it. Just stop at Solaris and you're good. So that's what I did, and I did that twice, and then I recently finally beat it, and I'm somewhat glad I did. Somewhat glad I did, because now I know the truth about the game.
Right.
You know, like I know the full game now, and there's no more like imagining in my head what disc 2 was. So I think you asked a little bit earlier too, like does playing games later than everybody kind of like mess around with your perception of it? And I would say that definitely, especially with Xenogears, it messed up with my perception because I played it later than everybody else, or at least beat it later than everybody else.
Right. So you brought up a really good point there that I kind of want to touch on for a second, and it's this concept of the game finally existing in your
Mm-hmm.
experience. You know, like it's been this kind of phantom thing as because obviously Xenogears is a touchstone video game for RPG discussion or
That's
narrative
phenomenal.
discussion. Right. And I think hearing about that even though you had played a little bit of it or whatever, but now that it's real to you, is it sobering? does it feel like, I don't know, you understand more of the genre after this? Is it kind of one of those things where you feel a little disappointed? Like, what's the balance? 'Cause I want to use Xenogears as an example, because I think that this is a really good, Xenogears is such a good game to be out of time, you know?
It's all of it. It's all of it. Because the last thing you said, was it disappointing? Absolutely. Because you play disc 2 and you just constantly reading everything, and you're like, I would love to be playing this, you know? And it really, but the story is just so good that it doesn't matter. But then when you're done with it and you think about it, you're like, man, if this game had been finished, finished in the way that the director wanted, and I can't remember his name right now, but
Takahashi.
Yes, Takahashi, that's it. If it had been finished the way he said, it would not have been disappointing at all. I think it would have been like one of the biggest games that Square Enix had ever done. Or it was Squaresoft at that point in time. But yeah, it was also like a weight off of my shoulders too, which a lot of people normally say that, like, oh, that's a weight off my shoulders. This bad thing is gone. No, it's just like this good thing is gone. Like, I finally played this.
It's nice to finally have a take.
Yes.
Your own. Yeah.
Yes. It's nice to have a take on the game where I'm not like, I love this game, but I didn't play disc 2.
Yeah.
So,
and it's cheesy as it might sound. It is kind of, it's like a canon of sorts. When you're going through high school and you're learning about literature, you have the classics, right? And I would say Xenogears, FF7, a lot of those Squaresoft games are what you would be part of the canon. I mean, I don't know what arbitrary metrics would be necessary to dictate which games fall into that hypothetical stupid concept, but like it's something that you always hear constantly and hear about. And I think what I think is most interesting about Xenogears in particular is the way that it extends beyond itself. And this is just a personal read, and I'm probably bending over backwards to make it into something bigger than it actually is. But the concept of Disc 2 being so unbelievably patchwork and unfinished and all that kind of stuff gives it a sort of larger than lifeness, because even though you wish that not just you, I feel the same. I think most people feel the same, that like when you hear this stuff about like, oh, what is it? It's like the begotten people, or the people who are like, so much
like the humans that have like turned into like weird creatures and stuff. And
right.
It's just like, okay, so this just happens, because the villain had the same plan as us to send nanomachines into the sky, and they rained down on everybody and they turned into these monstrosities. And then all of a sudden Ellie is just there and she's like a Jesus figure and she's curing it. And it's just like, what?
Yeah, it was the haves and have-nots or whatever.
Yes,
that's what they call it. I don't know why that just came to me, but it did.
Yeah, I couldn't think of it either. So it's just like these concepts are introduced, and they don't. Oh, I'm probably talking too loud.
No, it's not you. It's my balance.
But I probably. These concepts are introduced and they're gone so quickly because of how the story is paced in Disc 2, that like you don't have time to go through a dungeon to think about like story elements that you just got. It's just like on to the next thing.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's very weird.
And so like there's something larger than life about that, I feel, because it is this unfinished concept, and it's an interesting concept that falls a little flat, and it becomes almost bigger than itself, right? You start projecting a lot of what you want, a lot of what you read from the story onto what wasn't finished. And I think that is not a lot of games did that, and not a lot of games do that now. Right, the concept of, the player's expressiveness of the story actually kind of having an effect on the gameplay itself is kind of crazy. And I even though Xenogears is a fucking mess of a video game and there's a lot of frustrating things about it and really disappointing things about it, it ends up being one of my favorites, not just because of personal bias or whatever, and there's no accounting for taste, obviously, but it does have that quality to it. And
Absolutely.
it's one of those things that playing it now for the first time, or finishing it now, let's say for the first time, is probably maximizes the effect that it would have on you rather than if you played it when you were younger, right?
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. And especially because, just concepts that I understand now as an adult versus when I was a kid.
Right.
Like I play old Final Fantasy games that I played when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, I kind of get it. I hated Final Fantasy X when I was young. Like I hated it. And then I played it again this past year and it became my favorite Final Fantasy.
Hell yeah.
Until 16 and Rebirth.
Hell yeah.
So.
Dylan, where are you on the Xenogears thing here?
Yeah, so and this one's not my fault. I'm just gonna preface it with that real quick.
Okay.
So I loved what I played of Xenogears. Very common refrain for Dylan. My brother and I shared a PS3. So when I went to college, I couldn't take the PS3 with me for obvious reasons. My brother stayed at home, and so I didn't want to take it from him. So I stopped playing Xenogears at around, I think there's like the jailbreak. I think it's in Kislev.
Yeah,
I'm getting my name.
No, you got it.
Yeah. So I remember saving right after Ellie and Seton rejoined the party, and I never got farther than that because our PS3 bricked. Sometimes.
Rip.
Yeah,
that
it
sucks.
There were a couple attempts at starting it up again, but it's funny because I was actually thinking about getting a PSP, just like maybe not like anytime soon, but like maybe around the holiday season. I was thinking about getting a PSP and just putting in a bunch of old PS1 RPGs and also Tactics Ogre One Vision on there, just so I have like a comfortable portable way of replaying those classics. I wanted to ask you guys, do you guys remember I don't know if you ever, does the PSP have like save states for
It does not.
PSP games?
No.
I know that it does.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I'll get a Vita instead.
Yeah, I was going to say, get it. There's no real reason to hack a PSP when you can get a Vita and hack that instead if you want that.
But the price was like the main thing, but
right. Fair.
Yeah, I'll probably just go with the Vita then, because save states are nice, and then also I think the resolution's nicer, so I'll probably go with that.
I feel.
Yeah. If you can, and especially if you like Joey said, if you hack it, if you can put on something that has like a fast forward feature, Xenogears can be very slow sometimes.
Oh yeah. Dude,
with its dialogue.
I'm sure.
Oh, because it doesn't auto advance, bro. It doesn't fill out, and you can't press a button to make it fill out. There's a fucking mod for that.
So I will say,
I heard about that after I finished it.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say I do have Xenogears in ISO on my computer. I did play it briefly on DuckStation. The text scrolling. This laptop's not my most comfortable gaming setup that I have, so like Xenogears is paced in such a way where it's kind of like, I need a better way to play this. So
totally,
that's
totally
get that.
Yeah,
that's
it also lets you use the front and back touchscreens. Yes, I did borrow my brother's Vita to play a couple of games, and I do remember that being pretty nice.
That's that brings up a good point though, is that games that you have played for the first time, like older games that you've played for the first time now, and it's funny, Sunset, you mentioned Tales of Fantasia, because I feel like that's the through line between all of our experiences, is that game, like almost starting with that game for Tales. Like that game is so sick, but the rest of Tales, like Dylan's gonna hate me for this.
I get it.
So I've played.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've played a little bit. So I played a little bit of Tales of Fantasia, or no, I mean, I beat that one like like 2 decades ago now, probably. But I played a little bit of Tales of Berseria, Tales of Zillia. Um, there was one on the Vita. Maybe that was Tales of Berseria. I can't exactly
Tales of
remember.
Hearts R, I think, or Innocence R, like one
Oh
of those
yeah, I
games.
think it's Innocence Art. Yeah,
That's
Heart.
the
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So I played a little bit of that on Vita. I never have gotten past like 10 hours of
Super
another
good.
Tales of Fantasia or another Tales game. And it's not because they're bad or anything. It's just like one of those things where every time I pick one up, something happens and I just don't continue it.
I
I
get
don't
it.
know why. Tales is that one series that every time I pick Hearts are, that's the one. That's
Okay,
the
yeah.
one.
Thanks, Trash. Yeah,
Hearts are.
thank you.
It's that entire thing where it's just like every one I play, something comes up and then I never go back to it and I hate it.
So I will say that Tales is largely in part nostalgia for me because like Tales of Symphonia was probably my first. It was either Fire Emblem or Tales of Symphonia was my first non-Pokemon RPG. So um, that does have a lot of weight for me. That's why I bought Abyss when it came out. Um, I will also say that like as an adult who is more discerning in going back to those games, there are moments where like I will pick up a Tales game, particularly the Gen 6. That was PS2 and GameCube, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Like I'll pick those Tales games up and be like, they're mixed bags. Like I
Yeah.
said this on Twitter, Joey, but like even my favorite Tales game, I struggle to put above like a 7.5 out of 10.
Mhm.
Um, but I think they capture something that like other action RPGs don't quite, and it's like that one thing that like I hyperfixate on. Um, the entire sorry, I gotta stop checking chat. Uh, the so I guess my Tails hot take though. The reason why I still consider myself a fan, despite it all, particularly of the older games, something about playing Tales games like more so than like every other action RPG besides like Kingdom Hearts in like Odin Sphere at Leaf Dressier, they feel like RPGs that are designed by people who are both fans of RPGs and beat 'em ups in a way that like I don't quite get from Final Fantasy VII Remake or
Mhm.
trying to think of like other notable action RPGs from like the last 5-10 years, but I'm struggling right now. Um, but like I think the way that Tales of the Abyss and Symphonia take the idea of like crowd control and DPS and hit stun and kind of abstract like in ways lightly abstract them into something that is RPG esque and numerical is fascinating to me. And I think it's the reason why like even if like I can't sit down and like marathon Tales of the Abyss like I could when I was 12 years old, um I do still have like a certain level of respect for that game in Symphonia and a Destiny remake.
So I think what you touched on there is really interesting too, because you're talking about historical progression of a series, right? You look at the early Fantasia, Destiny, Eternia. Those early games, they didn't have those more deliberate fighting game slash beat 'em up mechanics. They you can tell the developers wanted to take something arcadey and mix it with Final Fantasy or the presentation of Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest or whatever, right? And then as those progressed, they got a little deeper until they ended up fucking falling off a giant cliff with the more modern games. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny because the Golden mentioned that, and a couple of other people mentioned Arise, and Arise is a good example of this, where Rise, very similar to Xenogears. The first half of that game is like pretty tight and narratively focused and polished, and then the second half is this like just VN, but it's so much shittier. And it's not just Xeno old thing good, new thing bad. It's not that at all. It's the quality of, and it's very obvious. You can see it. I've
Yeah.
never met anyone who's like, bro, the second half of that game is so much better. So you're talking about playing. We're talking about playing games now that we missed out on or whatever. And when you go back to certain titles that are transitionary or maybe not as, I guess, fully fleshed out conceptually, I think Symphonia is a really good example because that was like really when the series started to shift into what would be like more modern tales. So it begs the question of sort of when is the right time to play some of these games sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Has there, can you guys think of any examples of games that, you know, just absolutely would not hit for you now if you had played them now? And I think my example would be Star Ocean, because I think if I had played that 6 out of 10 series, now I would fucking hate it. Or I would be so, well, it's mid. It's mid, you know, that's all I would say and sound like a zoomer about it, but that's probably what I would say. It'd be weird to do that, you know, if I didn't have some kind of connection to it. So I'm curious if you guys have any examples.
I definitely have one. I adore the original Wild Arms. I do not know if I could go back to it. Because I think the main reason is because as much as I love Wild Arms, like for its music, its story, even like some of the dungeon design, I think it's a combination of how puzzle heavy the dungeons are with how slow combat is.
Yeah.
It's Dragon Quest combat except more cinematic, so it actually consequentially drags fights out way longer than the Dragon Quest fight. Sorry, I ran out of breath. Way longer than a Dragon Quest fight would. Um, and yeah, it's kind of this thing where it's like it feels kind of confused as a result. Like, do you want to be about like these big cinematic battles, or do you want to be like this very kind of old school pen and papery kind of like mapping out the dungeons, figuring out like, oh, this switch is here, and I need this key item for. So yeah, that's my pick.
Sunset, you got any off the top of your head?
Games that I would hate now. I wouldn't want to say that I hate them necessarily, but I don't think that I would ever really play like Final Fantasy 4 or like Final Fantasy 6 again. Like,
interesting. Why those in particular?
just something about them where they felt like transitionary games, like from Final Fantasy 3, which, you know, introduced a lot of the job system, and then going into Final Fantasy, you know, 4, they just kind of, you know, transferred all those job systems to that, like, to the specific characters. And then going into Final Fantasy 5, which was like the ultimate job system, you know, like for those older games, I just don't see any reason to like go back to 4. Like, I know it, like, it plays great, story's great and everything like that, but like the mechanics of it, I just enjoy so much more in the games where you can do, you know, different job systems or, you know, different jobs on different characters. And 6 is the exact same way. And the pacing of 6, I'm not a fan of. So it's just like, I loved both of those games when I played them, but when I played them last year. I played both of them last year, and I really just did not have fun with 4 or 6,
Yeah,
like, at all.
I forget that actually. Oh, sorry, Joe, you were
no,
about to say
go
something?
ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, because I have a similar feelings. I think for me, like Final Fantasy IV is so that is like a game I can point to and be like, my love for this is entirely nostalgia, and I will own that, but I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that is like a definitive comfort food game for me, where it's like because I know every beat of the story. I don't know. It's like riding a bicycle. You never forget, and that's kind of the fun of it.
Exactly.
Final Fantasy VI is similar for me, but I think Final Fantasy IV, there's something about the pacing, the constant switching out of party members, where it's like, all right, now I get to prepare for Palamin-Por I'm joining. So there's like its own kind of little grind in that. But I think Final Fantasy VI doesn't quite feel as tightly paced to me as Final Fantasy IV. When I get to the World of Ruin, that's like my favorite part of the game.
Right.
Like that open structure is just so fun to me, and I love exploring and collecting everything. But I do think like when I think back on the World of Balance, there's a lot of moments where I'm like, oh, I have to do this now. All
Right.
right.
Every time,
Uh-huh.
every playthrough.
Oh, man, I
The
don't
Leaf
feel that.
River, great. Oh yeah, I love the scuba diving. That's my favorite part.
Oh, it's fast. It's fast.
I know it's
I
fast.
feel
I'm
like,
just being a big old.
but
Yeah,
what's funny is that I think every Final Fantasy kind of suffers from that to some
this
extent.
is true.
It
You know-
does. It absolutely does.
It's a matter of which flavor of that you prefer. Like, because 6 is my favorite personally, but you know, I get that. I get it. 4 has the same thing. 2 has the same thing. 3 has it in spades with the fucking Nepto Temple and all the different magic you have to use. It's like, oh, I gotta fucking turn to a toad again. Ugh. You know, like there's a lot of stuff like that gets me. And
I
then,
hate that shit.
but then 9 does it too, and it's like now you gotta sneak around the sleeping Cid, who's a bug, and it's a stealth section, and if you accidentally press left, you're gonna wake him up, and it's gonna take 25 fucking minutes to go through this scene. Oh no, we stopped whole hog stopped, and it's like, yeah. No, go ahead.
See, this is why I did not mind Rebirth having as many mini games as it did, because despite the fact that some of those mini games, like specifically, I think Rebirth had 5 too many mini games, just 5.
5, yeah, okay.
I've specifically
Such a funny
narrowed
number.
it down
That's
to that
awesome.
number, where I was playing those mini games and I was like, okay, 90% of these are fun. Like, and then I think about back to like Final Fantasy 9 with exactly what you said, sneaking around with Cid, and I'm like, that's horrible. And then I think to Final Fantasy 10, where the mini games are dodge 200 lightning bolts to get this thing, and I'm like, that's why I did not mind Rebirth's mini games.
Yeah, and I get.
Sorry,
I
little
totally get-
tangent.
No. I'm glad you brought that up because that was literally my endpoint. That was like what I was gonna close on. Is that I was building it up. I was edging it until I could finally, make a point. Because, and I'm glad you picked up on that because I don't really like a lot of Rebirth's mini games. I definitely got thrown out of the experience, but it is the same kind of thing that Final Fantasy has been doing forever. 10 did it, 12. Well, 12 actually was a little better, but it still has a couple things.
12 has like 2 moments where you're like, okay. I mean, Captain Bach is like kind of a meme. You can skip it pretty quickly if you know who to talk to. But like, man, that part at the end, near the end game where you're talking to the Arcadian nobles and you have to like play a memory game with NPCs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh god.
I looked up a guide.
But like,
I looked at a guide.
Rebirth got like absurd with it. There is a point where I'm like, no, that's not another. No, they didn't just throw another. It actually started. It's like it became self-aware. And then I got to Shinra Mansion. I was like, okay, well, there's gonna be a mini game here because there is in Crisis Core. You expect it, right? And then it's just, we throw a box and a switch. It's right in front of your fucking face. And I started losing my mind on it, honestly. Like, I started chuckling out loud to myself, thinking, my favorite one is when Aerith and Tifa force Red to do the Rocket League mini game thing.
Yes.
And, dude, they put that, Red might be, like an animal technically, right? But he's self-aware. He's a big part of his arc is I'm not a dog or cat. I'm a person, basically, not a human, but I'm a person. And then fucking Aerith and Tifa, the white girls. First of all, they use his slave name. They use the slave name Red 13. And then they put him in Rocket League with a fucking idiot chocobo, a house cat, a dog who's not potty trained or house trained. Everyone that he's up against is in fucking remedial classes.
That's kind of so humiliating.
And Red is like, I'm an intelligent being. I am an intelligent being taken from my home, and this is what you've done to me. And Red, actually, what's fucking awful about it is he's like, yeah, I want to play Rocket League, and so that made me not want to play Rocket League. That's it.
I thought it was I did think when he was playing, when he was like, yeah, I want to do this or whatever, or he's got the he gets kind of weak for like, certain foods or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's still like a kid, You know, he's still like a teenager or whatever, but it is extremely weird. And I will definitely agree with.
And also, to address Trash's comment,
Well,
yeah,
actually,
actually, but you're right. He's right.
No.
Trash is 100% right. But the thing is that after they know, they still call him Red. I'm not saying. I'm just saying Barrett is the only person to say Nanaki.
The fact that Barrett was the one person to say Nanaki, and he said it the rest of the game was so cool.
That was like attention to detail. Like
it was.
It's sick.
Was.
But yeah, anyway, I not to go off on a tangent, but I'm not saying that the mini games in that are necessarily the same thing, but Final Fantasy has always had a little bit of that, and I think to bring it back a little bit more on topic, I think what'll happen 10 years removed from now when people replay Rebirth, I think what'll end up happening is that people will be more aware of that criticism. There's a shit ton of mini games in this. They kind of fucked up the dying part. I hope you're ready for it. You know, like, and there's an expectation then, right? That a lot of people will either replay or play for the first time, and their experience might be very different than ours now, right? Like, and
I feel like the canon doesn't really solidify until like half a decade later.
Right. And there's always this cycle. You know the cycle. Yeah. This I
live. Yeah.
Where it's like 13 gets like it was. I noticed it right away with 10, and it continued on where it's like 10. 10, they ruined Final Fantasy. Like, or actually, it was fine at first, and then like 12 was coming out. 11 is kind of like a weird interstitial game, but then 12 comes out, and people are like, whoa, they were ruining the game with 10 and 10-2. They shouldn't have made a sequel. That ruined it. And then 12 comes out and people are like, this is okay. And then 13 comes out and they're like, well, that's you weren't even playing the game. 12, you're making commands. And then 13 comes out and like sold really well, but then GameFAQs discourse poisoned it. And then by the time
all you do is hit X.
All you do is
you just hit X. That's all you got to do. Auto battle.
And you run through it. The games aren't the way that they used to be when Chrono Trigger. I played Chrono Trigger. And it was 9. No, it was perfect. No, it was perfect. And like, there's always that cycle. You know, 15 got a little bit more gas when 16 came out, and people were complaining that it was too actiony or whatever. And I guarantee when 17 gets announced and it's about to come out, people are gonna be like, I hope that's not like 16. And then when 18 comes out, people are like, dude, 16's the best game. It's that cycle. Yeah. It sucks.
You know,
that's always.
Oh, go ahead, Dylan. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say it's also because, like, you know, these series are perpetually like onboarding and offboarding fans. Like, people will find a point where it's like, yeah, I think it's time for me to hop off and, like, you know, hopefully have a healthy break and be like, all right, well, Final Fantasy VI was my favorite Final Fantasy, and I'm not getting what I want out of the series from that. So maybe I'll check out Romancing Saga, or maybe I'll check out, you know, whatever it was about Final Fantasy 16 that you liked, whether it was the sprite art or the story itself. Like, you find those qualities that you like and you look for them elsewhere because you're not getting them from the series anymore.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. You know what game is the fucking crux of that, dude? And I heard that, Dylan. Don't think I didn't hear you say Romancing Saga to like appeal to Joey. Don't think I didn't notice that. But Octopath, bro. Octopath is that game that a lot of people will play, and it's a good game. I like both Octopath. It's
so good.
But
I've only played 2.
Oh yeah, okay. So if you play 2,
good.
You're okay. You're okay. I'm curious, actually. You know what? Hold that thought, because I want to go back to that in just a sec. But Octopath is one of those games where I feel like a lot of people play and find something about it that they really like, and then they're like, "Oh, I like the protagonist thing," and I'm like, "Boy, howdy, do I have a series for you?" Anyway, check out the Saga video, you know. Or, hey, I like the combat a lot. And it's like, "Boy, howdy, do I have a series for you?" Check out Bravely Default or Saga still, you know.
I mean, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, hell, speaking personally, I think it's, you know, Final Fantasy XII's like dungeon crawling and semi-random treasure spawns that led me to Sharon the Wanderer, just to use an example that we've already been talking about.
Right, yeah. There is always a through line between people's tastes and how they evolve and how you go from one game to another. I think it's really apparent in RPGs where mechanics are so fucking visible, and optics on mechanics are so high that there's always discussion about that kind of thing, and there's a lot of discourse and I guess availability on that, and it's always very obvious when you play a game what kind of RPG for the most part, what kind of mechanic is there and what isn't. And Sunset, I'm really fucking curious, bro. I would love to see you play Octopath 1 after having played 2. I think that'd be fascinating.
The reason that I picked Octopath 2 instead of 1, well, for one, it was on sale. It was like 50% off on GameStop. But I heard that it was two separate stories, like Final Fantasy was. So I was just like, okay, well, I heard that Octopath 1 like has all the concepts there and has everything that 2 became.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
Right.
It's kind of like Final Fantasy 1 going into like Final Fantasy 3 or 5, where it's just like it starts out and it's got these things, or actually even Final Fantasy 15 going into 16 would probably be a better example, because 15 had that action into it and 16 perfected it.
I like the 3 to 5 analogy here, because 3 and 5 are very similar in a lot of ways, and because like 5 offers a more free, just about as much freedom as 3, and you have your whole party for 95% of the game, and you're given a ton of tools and toys to play with. The story is also told very similarly to Dragon Quest, where there's little events and arcs and whatever that culminate, but 5 is also silly like 3 is, but it's more
through line.
Yes, and it's very focused in a lot of ways compared to 3. Oh, not just compared to 3, but evolutionarily to 3, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And Octopath is kind of the same. The only difference, well, actually, because 3 is my least favorite Final Fantasy. I'll be real with you. I still love it. I love it.
Right.
But it's my least favorite Final Fantasy. And whereas 5 is top 4.
Hell yeah.
So it's like it's a night and day. And I think Octopath is similar, where I can't really think of anything that Octopath 2 does markedly better than 1, other than the fact that, and this is maybe, I don't know if you can judge this, but Octopath 1's battle system to me was more engaging at the time because it was new, and then 2 comes out, and 2's is a little bit more refined, but it's the same fucking thing, and it does nothing to innovate on 1 necessarily, right? And
I loved their battle system in that.
It's good, yeah.
And 2.
And so like going back to 1 might feel weird to you because it's the same thing, but it's not as tight,
right.
It's not even like a Final Fantasy it's not even like a Final Fantasy 3 to 5 kind of situation, where even though 3 and 5 are very different, they have their own unique flavors. Octopath 1 and 2 don't really have a whole lot of flavoring as different entries in the battle system.
It's like a revision almost.
Yeah. Or it feels like it's almost like the combat feels like it's a DLC expansion of the combat in 1, if that makes sense. It's
that makes sense.
So, and that's not a good thing for 2. So, but it's difficult to talk about that, right? Because you don't want to judge 2 in context of 1 necessarily. You want to take it as its own thing. But
so, if I could ask a question, sorry, I don't butt in, but
no.
What would change? What's the distinction in your mind between the iterations of Octopath Traveler 1 to 2 versus something like Dragon Quest 4 to 5, just to throw out a couple?
Okay, yeah. So I think Dragon Quest 4 and 5 are fundamentally the same game, like combat wise. The only difference is the tools that you get in 5 are so much differently presented than 4, right? Because in 4 you're forced into these vignettes, and and Octopath almost cosplays as that, You know, like, oh, these are 8 different. Yeah, it's not fucking that. Which for better or worse, you know. But 5, you know, it gives you the monster stuff, right? It kind of forces you to play a little bit vignette with like different characters from each age or whatever. But it also just adds a lot more mechanics. That's, you know, it's similar in a way because it's iterative, but it doesn't feel as, especially because Octopath is kind of like a retro game, you know, to use the literal sense of the word. That I don't know. I would say like it works better for Dragon Quest, because of the nature of the series, I guess. But maybe maybe that won't age well either. Maybe 12 years from now, there will be Octopath 6, and we'll be talking about it in a different way. You know, like,
I hope.
Yeah,
I hope they continue that series.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
I would, but like, and that's the thing too, is that 2 has so much better writing than at least I think. I could give you examples about why, but like 2's writing as a whole is just way more focused, way more on point. And I think if you go back to 1, even the voice acting in 2 is way better. But even if you go back to 1, you're just going to be like, maybe.
Oh, I'll definitely be talking about it when I do play it.
Yeah,
like I'll definitely be talking about it. So you'll hear it.
Hell yeah. No, I'm really interested in that because I think that comes like full circle with this discussion too, is like playing a game after its time or whatever. And I think I'm really curious as to how that game will kind of
age in the collective conscious.
Yeah, and it's I think thinking about stuff like that is games that have gone through different sort of evaluation over the course of decades. Because I mean, we're Sunset and I are a little older than Dylan here, but we still have all been playing games for most of our fucking lives, and most of them seemingly have been RPGs. So it seems like something that we've lived through and we've seen. I mean, you guys mentioned in the chat, but like 13 watching the discourse on FF13 change, and like it's gotten
so
more positive. Because wait, you played that recently, or replayed it recently, right, Sunset?
Yeah, and I despised 13 when it came out. Like I played it on the 360 the year it came out, and I didn't. It was a 3-disc game on the 360. I don't think I got like halfway through the first disc. I was just like, this is garbage. And then I had a friend who played it, and it was like 2 years later or something like that. And I had a friend who played it, and he was like, dude, you just go back to it. He was like, get past the 20, get to 20 hours. And I was like,
right,
what?
Once you reach this point in the game,
what are you talking about?
Oh, that's
it's like
the meme. You know, it gets good after 40 hours.
It is the meme. But I did. He was like, just pay attention to the characters, like, you know, really try to get involved with the story and everything. So I bought it for PS3, and I loved it. I loved it, and then I replayed it again recently, and I was just like, man, I love this more than the older Final Fantasies. Like, it just grew on me that much.
Yeah, so that's interesting too, because it's like it's not just a maturity thing. You know, I think sometimes you could just play the right thing at the wrong time, and that it extends to all media.
Yep.
You know,
and
yeah, for sure.
To touch on that, when you play the right thing at the wrong time, or the right thing at the wrong time, you mentioned Chrono Trigger earlier, and for some reason it didn't even cross my mind that I played Chrono Trigger beat it for the first time this year.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, like I had tried it a few times because it was like this legendary game that everybody loves and everybody talks about. And I tried it, and I tried to play it 3 times, I think. I would get to the future, and I would get Robo, and then I would get bored. I would get really, really bored. And I don't know why. I don't know what it was about the game, or, you know, what it was about that specific part. But then I finally pushed past it, and it is one of the best RPGs that I've ever played in my life.
Hell yeah!
So
yeah, I love Chrono Trigger. It's funny, a friend of the channel and Mr. Drewby, who was originally supposed to be on this episode. He no, he wasn't. Never mind. I got him confused with somebody. Sorry, Drewby. I didn't mean to put you on blast. I love you, buddy. But he actually reviewed Chrono Trigger. The first time he played it was earlier this year, I think.
That's
I think that's what
it's
he said
so
on
good.
And he's like, yeah, this is a really good game, but I don't really feel a lot from it, you know? And it's like, that's kind of where it's funny because I think a lot of people in the elder millennial range, or like the youngest Gen X, the Zennial, whatever, that age group, which is pretty much our age group, is like gasses Chrono Trigger up pretty hard, and you know, and for a good reason. It's a very good game, you know. But I think now a lot of people playing it for the first time or whatever are a little bit lukewarm on it, right? And
So do you want to hear? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I felt nothing for the story at all. There's a certain, you know, I don't, just in case anybody's listening to this that doesn't know what happens, there's something that happens to a character in the middle of the game.
Yeah.
Sort of. And you can choose to do something towards the end. You know, I didn't choose to do that. What happens with that character happened, and that was it. So I felt really nothing for the story. The characters were cool, but I was like, I didn't really feel much for the characters. But the way that the boss battles play out in that game is so unique, and the way that the story does play out is so unique for that specific point in time. I just kind of look back on it, and I was like, if I had played this back then, it would have blown my mind. Because no stories that I can think of were doing the kind of stuff that was doing. So it's one of the best RPGs ever.
Hell yeah.
But not really emotionally attached to the story.
That's kind of what he said too. That's interesting. Dylan, what were you going to say?
If I could throw in a comparison to a game that is not an RPG, but I feel equally relevant to the conversation, my take on Chrono Trigger is that it's kind of, you know, for Gen X or RPG fans, it's like the equivalent of Uncharted 2.
Okay.
Where I think Uncharted 2 for a lot of people, at least when it came out, at least from my perspective, Uncharted 2 was like this landmark title. Like it was like one of the craziest games ever. The story, the characters, the arenas, like the level design. And it's like, now that time has passed, I still have a lot of fondness for Uncharted 2. I still like the story. But being exposed to better movies, or movies that are written better than Uncharted 2, being exposed to shooters that play better than Uncharted 2, you know, it's kind of like, I could see why someone who wasn't there on the ground floor, or who maybe had exposure to, or a different relationship to the shooter genre than what Uncharted 2 was providing, would not be as hot on it as I was when I played it for the first time back in 2008, I think is when it came out.
Right. And the historical context, especially as it relates to experiential things like this, means a lot. And I sometimes I do think it isn't any deeper than this, just isn't hitting for me the way it hits for other people. And I don't think that necessarily there has to be like a reason for that too, right? If you play Chrono Trigger now and you're just like, I don't really like it, you know, it doesn't have to be because the internet was gassing it up. Right. And I think that's like, so I feel like more often than not, sometimes people love to be contrarian about this kind of thing. You're sort of being like, there's definitely a bit of like reactionaryism
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. But I don't think that's
cathartic in a way, but yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So it's really interesting. I like the way that I find that the time and mental place that people are in when they play games is so fascinating to me on a psychological level, you know? Almost like manipulatively so. So for example, I have this in the notes here, but I was thinking about this, and it's like the concept of FOMO, right? this is huge to me, especially, you know, as it relates to something like Chrono Trigger, because not only is it relative to modern RPGs, Elden Ring's a big one. I'm not playing Shadow of the Erdtree right now. I don't know when I'm going to play it.
I'm not gonna play it.
You're just not
Like 100%. I will never play Shadow of the
That's
Erdtree.
great. That's okay. Hell yeah. And like I love Elden Ring. I have a lot of fucking big criticisms about Elden Ring, but like it isn't necessarily that I don't want it or it doesn't look interesting. It's just one of those things. Like I feel I don't really get that FOMO from it. You know what I mean? And I don't really have a big drive to want to pursue it. But at the same time, I get why that is a thing, and I think there is a bit of brain fuckery that happens there with us, where someone says, "Oh, bro, hop on Shadow of the Erdtree," or like I DM Sunset, I'm like, "Bro, you gotta check this shit out. This boss is so sick." You know, there is a little bit of that works. There's a bit of social pressure here and there for sure, and it's there with older games too. It's there, bro. My favorite thing, my absolute favorite thing that never irritates me at all, what people do when you're like, "Oh, I haven't played this," and like, "You haven't played Chrono Trigger?" And it's like, come on, man. I don't know, like, but so yeah, there is a bit of social pressure with that with older games as well, and I mean, Sunset, you were talking about playing fucking Mass Effect for the first time or whatever, and I'm sure. I fucking remember there were people in your replies being like, what? Like, not even ironic or playfully being like, "You haven't played Mass Effect? What?
I can't believe you haven't played Mass Effect yet.
right.
How are you playing Mass Effect?
And that was their fucking contribution to that conversation. You know, that, like, cool, bro. Thanks for that.
I will say that my Mass Effect arc was one of like the best like experiences that I've ever had on Twitter, just because there were so many people who were like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you haven't played Mass Effect. I'm so glad you're enjoying it," or whatever. But then you have the people who were like, "What the fuck have you been doing for your life?"
Yeah,
Right.
Like, you haven't played Mass Effect.
I went to college. What about you?
Yeah, I was just like, I played Dark Souls way too much. And before that, it was I played Guitar Hero way too much.
right. Like,
And
that
didn't
shit
play any
happens.
RPGs.
Right.
Like, it's not necessarily that we narrow our experiences. It's more so that there's only so much bandwidth, you know? A person's bandwidth does not mean that they're narrow. Their tastes are narrow. I'll say. And it, like, God, people love to do that. It's like, it's almost a competitive thing. And I hate, one of my biggest fucking pet peeves is when people act like they're not naturally competitive, you know? And that's one of those things that people do. Because, like, what the fuck are you saying other than being like, oh, you haven't played this? Oh, wow. It's almost like an affront to your sensibilities or credit, you know? Like, oh, you might be good at speedrunning Mega Man 4 there, Sunset, but you haven't played Mass Effect 1, so I'm going to make sure that you know on social media. It's just...
It's to really say you're a good gamer.
Right. You need to... You hit the fucking checklist. I call it checklist gaming, bro. You know, you fill out that Excel spreadsheet of games.
My 3x3 is everyone's 3x3.
Yeah, right.
When it came out, I was like, I was into playing like Guitar Hero and Rock Band, and like I had an actual band that I was in at the time. Like I was hanging out with like a bunch of new people, you know, and I was playing like horror games too. Like I was playing Dead Space a lot. I had like RPGs didn't even enter my mind, except for like Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Yeah. Those were like the two that I played, and that was pretty much it. And aside from like whatever Final Fantasy was out at that time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I feel that. I think like there is always a game or genre or time in your life that eclipses everything else. You know, for me it was WoW and Counter-Strike, and I think for a lot of people,
Counter-Strike.
Yeah, God, man, MMOs usually do it to folks. I think FF14 is definitely stomping on a lot of people's free time and what they're playing and whatever. And I think that's just one of those things. So I've got a bit of a question. Are there any games that, I don't know, got under the radar from you? Maybe during these times when you were focused on the Guitar Hero or the WoW or whatever. Any games that just got away that you wish that you had played but never quite did?
Y'all can go first with that one. I gotta think.
I got.
I gotta think on that one.
I'm trying. Yeah, because I missed out on. Well, Yakuza is a big one for me. I just never played it.
You know what? That's mine.
Yakuza. Oh hell yeah.
That's mine because I'm trying to play 0 right now. Like I'm on chapter like 8, I think, of Yakuza 0, and I keep wanting to play other stuff because playing Yakuza 0 to all the rest to where it actually becomes an RPG is such a daunting task. I'm just like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do it.
Yeah, I feel
so. So yeah, that one's mine.
Man,
I hate that slipped by.
Yeah, it happens, and it's like that one I was a little skeptical on because not all the games are RPGs or whatever. But that is. I mean, there's a lot of series that I didn't put as much attention into because I was playing other things or just something took precedent or my life got really fucking busy and I couldn't really do that. And actually, funny enough, Trash says Metal Gear Solid 4, but I'm trying to stick to RPGs. But 5 I never played, and there's kind of no reason for me never to have played MGS 5 because it's like that's my shit, bro.
Yeah,
So
I mean, for what it's worth, I'm really. I mean, I played a solid amount of it when it came out, but I was also working on my senior thesis at the time.
Right. Yeah.
For MGS 5.
Pretty early. Yeah. For MGS 5.
Oh.
So I.
Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say. So I started a new game on Saturday. I'm probably gonna shelve it again because I just got Death Stranding and I want to play that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it's clicking with me in a way that I couldn't let it when I was in college. So I am excited to more fully immerse myself in that when the time comes.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
SMT4 for me.
That okay? You know what? That one wins.
Yeah, for you
that's
too.
Fine, for sure. Yeah.
You get that slipped by you as well.
I mean, I
SMT
played a
and
little
Persona.
Oh, okay, huh?
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Did you ever give it a shot, Sunset, or did you?
So, I started playing Persona 5 Royal recently, and then I was like, I'm gonna stop playing this because I want to stream it.
Okay.
Like, I want to actually stream it.
Okay.
But I just wanted to agree. Like, yeah, the entire SMT and Persona series just flew past me, and yeah, I eventually I will play all of them. But my God,
that's a lot.
That's
dude.
another daunting.
That's a lot.
That's a huge investment.
I like 2 years ago, I decided that I was going to go through every single Mega 10 game. So I started with, you should try Jack Bros. Yeah, that's a good point, Dorman. Thank you for that. It's a Virtual Boy game. He's fucking.
No, I know. I used to have it.
Mania.
I played.
Nice.
I played that entire game on the Virtual Boy.
Fuck yeah,
actually.
dude! That was my first. That was my first Mega 10 game too. That's sicko shit. You love to see it.
I had an entire Virtual Boy collection.
Hell
Every
yeah.
US released game.
I have the same. I have
single
the same
one of
thing
them.
in my room over here.
Man,
now
I
this
love-
siren's coming for me. I don't know if you guys can hear this.
Yeah. No, I hear that.
Yeah, very, very good game.
Okay, so like, I think the series actually, the duology is Golden Sun. If I had if I had Golden Sun growing up, I would have been about that life.
I was just gonna say, you seem like a Golden Sunner.
You would think I would have played Golden Sun. No.
Same. A lot of
like-
people tell me to play it. They're like, it's like completely coded for you, and I'm like, never played it.
Yeah, like
Want
Golden
to.
Sun, and then like it's the worst version, but I remember seeing the Game Boy Advance port of the first Lunar game.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
don't play that one. Yeah.
yeah, but I like all the same. I still think I would have like loved it if I picked it up as a kid.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And that actually that I feel like that's a fucking perfect example for a game that fits this topic so well, because a lot of people's first experience with Lunar 1 was the GBA version, right? And it's so different. It's like it's basically a remake. And it's funny because that's their experience with that game, and a lot of folks who love that game just never played the original. And that's fine. You don't need to play every fucking version of Lunar 1, but at the same time, I think that's like one of those things that it's almost out of time, and I think that's fascinating to me, like people experiencing something like that. But Lunar was a game in a series, I guess, that really slipped by under people's radar, because like who's playing that other than niche?
Right, you have to be in the culture. You have to be in the culture like 20 years ago.
Right,
Really
right,
about Lunar 1.
right. And
I,
yeah, so
I didn't even have a Sega CD when I was a kid. I played it like on a friend's Sega CD, and like I beat Lunar 1 and Lunar 2 on his Sega CD. And it was just like we would go. I'd go over his house, we'd play it together, just hang out, play it, whatever. I could not tell you a single thing about either one of those games because we just didn't pay attention. But like, it was so weird, the fact that I played those, and then I remember hearing about them. People are like, "Oh, these are great," and I'm like, "I know, I played them. They're really fun."
Yeah, that's crazy,
like,
man.
How?
That's fucking wild. Yeah, because we were talking about we were talking about this on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's right. I had those when I was a kid, the Sega CD games, and that's like it's not a surprise that slipped by people for sure, because it's a sort of a hard sell. Maybe, well, the Lunar 1 and 2 definitely had a bit of a phase, because they got the PS1 re-releases after Final Fantasy 7, because people were buying, people realized, oh, there's like RPGs, that's a genre that we can play, and Lunar was pretty good for that. If you like Final Fantasy 7, you probably would at least dig some of Lunar, right? So
I just remember enjoying it so much. Like both of those games, I just remember being so fucking good.
I love Eternal Blue. That game is so sick, and the music. Oh man! And Dylan, you said PSO, like
I put in chat Fantasy Star Online because I remember seeing like a snippet of it in a trailer for like a GameCube demo disc or whatever. And like you see like the advertisements for it in Sonic Adventure 2, and like that game's art and is like embedded in my brain. I have no way of playing it besides hopping onto a fan server.
Oh, dude, you should. That's okay. This is so topical to this thing.
Yeah.
Fantasy Star Online. Actually, I don't know if I put it in the notes, but I was gonna mention it because Fantasy Star Online is one of those games that I am so interested to see people play for the first time now. Or at least try for the first time now. And you can get a pretty authentic experience by playing on Blueburst, which is like basically Blueburst was the PC client that came out after the politically correct. It's the woke PS. No, it's the PC version of PSO episode 1 and 2, and then they added like another expansion basically.
Right.
And it does have some quality of life features, some streamlining and stuff, but there are basically you create a lobby or a game, right? And when you create a game, you can essentially have the same kind of parameters as the GameCube version, right? And you can carry that character and level it up, and it's not, that character is not exclusive to the lobby type that you make or whatever. So you can get like a pretty authentic view or experience of it. And
interesting. I might have to hop on.
Dude, you should. It's free. It's super easy to install. We did it for Super RPG Friends, like for it was like a charity stream.
Oh, I do remember. Yeah,
and it was
a
lot of fun.
And that one, but yeah,
I definitely. That's funny that you should mention that. PSO is your most played. Yeah, dude, mine too, by far, trash. But that's one of those games where I definitely plan on trying to do something with that as a stream, like a long form stream at some point. Sunset, did you ever play PSO?
No, I've never played a Fantasy Star game.
Okay, so that's
That's another one on my list where it's like I want to play all of these at some point.
hell yeah. That'd be interesting to see you talk about too, because but if PSO is like a different beast, it's like Diablo.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it
Yeah.
basically is the same exact thing as Diablo, just different perspective or whatever. So, but Phantasy Star is another good series that's like a lot of people just didn't hear about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are there any series that you guys have seen recently or have heard of recently that just fucking completely over your head for years?
As in like a recent series where I'm like, oh, where has this been all of my life?
Yeah, or just like you just never heard of, or
Okay.
because mine, I'll give you mine if you need
Yeah, go
time
ahead.
to think. Mine is ease really. So like I didn't really get into ease until like a couple years, not a couple. Now at this point, it's probably been like what 6-7 years. You know, I didn't really get into it until then. But you know, you're talking almost 30 years of never really having played it. I rented Ease 3 as a kid, and I told the story a million times, but it like made me cry because I hated it so much, and I didn't even remember the name of the game, so that doesn't count, you know. But like, but I didn't really even, you know, when I played it, I had never really heard of it, so I was like, I don't know how, because I was always on fucking GameFAQs, you know, being annoying on GameFAQs.
Same.
Hell yeah. Sunset, do you have one? Do you have a series or game?
Well, because it's not it's not an RPG, but I will say Death Stranding.
Okay.
But if we're talking like RPGs, I really think it would just be straight up Mass Effect.
Okay.
You know?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Just like where was this all my life? Why didn't I play it? I would also probably say Octopath Traveler 2.
Mhm.
You know, like whereas like I've been like one of those things where it was like I've been craving like a turn-based RPG that has like a really cool story, and like, you know, I have my problems with HD 2D, but like really good graphics and, you know, stuff like that. And it's just like, where has this been all these years? Like, why haven't we gotten more of this? And I feel like since Octopath 1 and 2, we're starting to get more of it. Like with the Dragon Quest remakes, the Live Alive, however you're supposed to say that one.
Yeah. Soul said it's Live Alive, and that's how I've always
Live
said
Alive.
it. Yeah, that's
That
how
makes
I've always
sense.
said it. Yeah.
That makes sense. But yeah, so like those, you know, I would say those probably, especially like the Octopath Traveler 2, because it's just like I've been wanting one of these for so long. And Bravely Default was fine, but I didn't really get into that as much. I never played 2. But Octopath Traveler 2 just like really hit that thing that I had been wanting for so long,
Word.
especially over the last decade.
I feel that. Yeah.
I'm kind of struggling because like through technicality, Sheeran I picked up when the new game came out, and that's like, you know, I think I picked it up at the perfect time. Same thing with Dragon Quest. When I originally got into Dragon Quest, it was the DS remake of 5, which yeah. So I'm really struggling. I'm trying to think like what is an RPG or a series where I just Tactics Ogre was pretty big, but I feel like I've only played the first. I've only played Tactics Ogre. So
Well, that counts. I said gamer series. Yeah.
Tactics Ogre
Yeah.
is so good.
Tactics are fun.
yeah.
That's,
So
so
especially
good.
playing, especially like now that I've dipped my toe into One Vision, I'm like, oh shit, this is it.
that's
like,
it. That's it, man.
This, yeah. Like I heard you gassing up One Vision, and I didn't see the vision until I tried the vision.
Yeah. I feel that too. Replaying Reborn though kind of made me see that vision more too. So I think Reborn is really solid. I just think like there's a lot of
Yeah, I
things
think-
on the surface that about Reborn that are gonna turn people off. It's a pretentious kind of game. The changes
Yeah.
are very
For me?
pretentious.
Yeah.
And
For me, Reborn is kind of like this weird, like it's trying to have the best of both the PSP version and the Super Famicom version. But the more I spend with either one, the more I'm like I kind of like them separate but equal. To
Mhm.
yeah, that's
No,
yeah, for sure.
it's which is crazy because like, you know, I also think Tactics Ogre Reborn was probably the best starting point for this singular entry in the franchise. It was really good at onboarding me, but now that I've tried both, like I think the original Tactics Ogre is super cozy, in a in how simplistic it is, and I think One Vision is just like super cracked out. So yeah, I don't know. But like I like that I have all these options for how to re-experience this story and this setting.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. Or maybe I was talking to Ziad about this before, but I think I judge games weird because in a game that has a million different versions or entries or types, right? Final Fantasy 1, Ys 1,
Yeah.
Tactics Ogre, all those have like 15 different versions that play totally different from one another. That they all create this weird composite that adds, it's just the whole. So the umbrella, the FF1 umbrella. Yeah. FF1 is high on my FF list because there's a million different ways to play it. Even FF4, I'm not a big fan of FF4, but FF4 has two very distinct experiences in the 3D version, which is like a low-key Mega 10 game, and then the 2D version, which is baby's first RPG. So it's like this really weird, gameplay-wise anyway.
No, you're absolutely right.
No, it's true. It's true. The best, I think the best version of 4 is the PSP version.
Yeah, I think so too. Holy, yeah. I agree. I definitely agree.
I lean a little bit towards the Game Boy Advance version, but again, nostalgia.
I feel that. Yeah, like I remember I bullied Gordon, Game Dad, into playing the PSP version of FF4. He's like, well, I kind of want to play the like the Super Nintendo one or like this. I was like, bro, no. You're gonna fucking download that ROM and you're gonna download that emulator and you're gonna play the PSP version. I'm coming to your fucking house and beating your ass. No, I don't.
100%.
But yeah, but I was kidding, but also serious. So, yeah. So we are kind of running a little bit up on time. So I do want to just make one quick topic too before, because I'm kind of getting like an ear. Oh, okay. By the way, Dorman, the original 3DS. This is actually a good point. The 3DS version of FF4 is way harder than the PC version because
extremely hard.
Yeah, the PC version of FF4, when you beat the game, you unlock hard mode, and hard mode was the 2D, or just regular DS. Why can't I speak? It's just the DS version, the difficulty balance of it. But I would say play the PC version over it because it's way smoother, it's faster, it looks way better, it sounds way better, etc., etc. It's still got a little fang in it. But yeah, so just based off of your guys, your things that you said that you had missed and games that slipped by you, I think it'd be kind of fun to try to recommend each other something that you might really dig. So Sunset, I think if you played, I would say SMT Nocturne in particular. I think
I have that.
I think you'd be fucking into that because you're a big Souls guy. And I think there's a lot of really similar mechanics, or not mechanics, but sensibilities to the game design of both Nocturne and some of the, at least Dark Souls 1 for sure. And people always like, it's SMT so hard. It's not really that difficult.
It's really
I always hear it's so hard.
Yeah,
it's one of those things where it is the game that taught RPG fans in America to buff your characters.
Right. I mean, like, yeah, you have a really nuanced understanding of RPG mechanics, so I don't think you'll have any problem with it. But like, hard mode is hard, but I wouldn't recommend that in the first playthrough. But but either way, I think that game was like that slipped by you, bro. I hate to say it. I think it slipped by. I think you would really like it. I don't know if you played it like in this, if like after this podcast you're like, Joey told me to play this, so I'm gonna play SMT Nocturne. Even if you did that right after this podcast, I don't know if it fully would hit, but it feels like lost, almost like lost media to some extent. But maybe you can find it.
I need to figure out what game I'm playing after I play Lufaya.
Okay.
And I don't think I'm gonna play 2 right after 1, just so I can split up the series or whatever. But if it's not Wild Arms, because I've really wanted to play Wild Arms,
Mhm.
I never finished it. I will probably actually play the SMT, like an SMT game,
Hell yeah.
because I've been wanting to play those for so damn long.
Fuck yeah. I think you'd really dig it. And wait, have you played Lufia 2 before?
I've played the first one to like the last dungeon.
Oh,
I think I played the second one to like the last dungeon as well.
Yeah, because
It was just one of those things where you drop like, so the second one I was playing it on emulator and I lost the save file.
oh, rip.
So, rip. I just never went back to it. The first one I actually had on the Super NES, and just for whatever reason I stopped, and then the battery died.
Oh, love that. Love that.
Yeah, when I picked it up like, I don't know, like 6 years ago or something like that. I was going through the collection I used to have. The battery was dead. So I was like, all right, well, I was probably going to start it over anyways, but whatever.
Oh,
It's
rip.
Lufia. Okay.
Yeah, he just really wants to type loof. That's just really what Trash's endgame is, typing loof. Putting loofs in chat. Yeah, no, 2 is really good. To me, that's like a step a step up. And Dylan, for the 3rd time, I'm recommending you. Actually, I'm changing it up.
Yeah, the Heart's Covenant. No.
I was watching B play that game. That game is sick. I never really got very far. The soundtrack is insane in that game.
Pretty good. Yeah,
I've been watching her play it.
Dude, do you know? Hold on. Let me look up exactly, because I remember looking up this yesterday. I was like, this sounds like Mitsuda, right? And
it is. I think
it is, but it's also Kenji Ito and fucking
shit,
Hirota,
what?
dude. That's fucked up. Hirota did like the N64 Bomberman games.
Yeah.
Beautiful soundtracks. That like, I was like, whoa, bro. That soundtrack is good. But no, I say Saga Emerald Beyond. That's my thing to you. Yeah.
Oh, bet. Yeah. Yeah, I could do that.
You can play the demo. The demo's free, but you gotta first play Death Stranding. You got priorities.
I'll play Death Stranding. I'll play it.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Dylan, I'm gonna recommend that you play the rest of Xenogears at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You gotta do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it at some point.
Yeah.
Every RPG fan
it's
has
right
to
of
play
passage.
Xenogears.
Yeah. All right.
No, but I would recommend that one to you. Joey, I don't know what to recommend to you. I feel like you just played everything. I feel like you played everything.
I haven't played. What did I put on my list? Oh, I never played Atelier. I never played Yakuza.
I never played Atelier either.
What else?
That one Atelier always seemed a little too, I don't know.
It's too like
a little too Japanese for me.
I
don't know.
I've never played any of the Atelier games. I feel like I'd be more likely to play either the PS2 games or the Marie remake.
Right.
Right. But there's something intrinsically appealing for me about like collecting loot. So it seems like a really fun game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shame about the Gooners have taken over Atelier.
They come for everything, man. They were coming for Saga for a bit too, and Saga to me is not a Goon series in the slightest bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. Oof.
Gooners don't play the games that they.
Well, that Saga has a mobile game, so that exactly fits your description there. Yeah, 100%. I'm sure there's some.
Joey should play Hyperdimension No.
Go fuck yourself, man. No.
Conception 2. No, this is tough. And it's also got to be like a game that I beat, which, as we all know, is infamously tiny.
Conception 2 is crazy, man. That's a game I haven't thought of, and like I never played it actually, so I couldn't tell you. So, but
I've never played it either. My brother is a fiend for RPGs, including the Gooner classics. So
That seems like a very, I call it a CRPG, and the C is for cummy, and that's definitely what that's what that's there for.
Holy shit.
Child slavery warfare. Yeah, that's
yeah. I mean, I'll just say like this is a game I've been meaning to dip my toe into more, which I'll probably play after Xenogears. I loved Grandia, again on the PS3 that is now dead.
Mm.
That was another game I was going to put on my PSP, but I feel like you've played Grandia.
I
So
played the first two.
yeah,
I never played any other ones, and I haven't played Shiren the Wanderer outside of like an hour of the DS one.
Yeah, that's fair.
So that
I mean,
was
maybe that. Fuck it.
hell yeah. No, I mean you said it. You took what 55 death or something
Yeah.
crazy like that.
Good
That was the
lord.
Super Nintendo version. The Switch, Shiren the Wanderer 6, took me like 20 tries, which sounds like a lot, but I made a lot of. I never felt like I was hitting a wall during that time.
Nice.
Yeah, like Shiren the Wanderer for the Super Famicom, which again I have to stress the DS remake. I've been told kind of rebalances the difficulty, the drops, and all that. The Super Famicom version, I really love for its atmosphere and everything, but like, yeah, no, that is the hit your head into a wall over and over again type of design.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I like Saga. You know.
Yeah, you know what? That's fair. Forgot who I'm talking to.
Yeah. I'm fucked up. There's no fixing me. You know.
Freak. Yeah.
It gives, and so yeah, so you gave me one. It gives Sunset one.
Yeah, I'd like
All
one.
right.
Yeah.
Nocturne was such a good one though. All right.
I know. I got it so you wouldn't have to be.
Kind of like high key stole like all right. Because I mean, like, yeah, between Octopath Traveler and also the Dark Souls vibes, I feel like SMT really does kind of nail that perfectly. What else did you say you liked? Because those were like the big takeaways. Like Death Stranding. You like throw out some other games that you like, and maybe it'll like jog my memory for something.
Death Stranding, Dead Space. Yeah, Dark Souls. What other?
Have you ever played Parasite Eve?
Ooh,
You know
that's
what?
good.
That was literally just in my head
That's
just
so
now
Okay,
because that's one that I have played like 10 hours of and loved and never went back to.
So, okay, yeah. I'll say this. Either Parasite Eve or Vagrant Story.
Vagrant Story is actually one of the top 5 that I'm considering as my next after Lufia.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Vagrant
Yeah.
Story is really, dude. That's such a
Yeah.
good recommendation for me for him. Yeah, that's really solid.
I'm like,
The-
if you like Kojima, I mean, like, Vagrant Story is the most Kojima Matsuno's ever been.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And it takes place in Ivalice, which I've never it's like the one Ivalice game I've never played.
Mhm.
So
It's
Yeah,
like it's like a little loose, but it definitely has the Evilise like
Mhm.
vibes,
Yeah.
and it's there. Yeah.
I'm willing to count it.
Mhm.
There's like enough vague connections where I think it. I could gush about Vagrant Story, but I feel like that's not the spirit that we're ending on. So,
No, it's a good spirit though. Vagrant Story rips.
yeah, Vagrant Story is like very. There's a lot of esoteric, like all Matsuno games. There's a lot of esoteric, like I don't want to say hidden mechanics, but like it doesn't necessarily explain itself super well. So
Yes.
definitely.
I definitely
like,
don't
even if-
mind that.
Okay, cool. Like, definitely DM me if you're like, Dylan, I'm hitting this enemy for like 2 damage. What do I do?
Right?
But I love Vagrant Story. I love talking about Vagrant Story. That's one of my favorite stories in all of video games. That's the recommendation.
Hell yeah.
Sick.
Hell yeah.
That's a good homework for everybody, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on here. I had a lot of fun. I Could go on and on. I'm trying to keep a little bit of.
Yeah, I'm having a blast here. It did
Yeah,
not feel
same.
like
Same. I'm like, I've got to go to sleep soon, but I don't want to.
Right, look at the time. I was like, damn, we've been streaming for like an hour, over an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yeah, we do have there is a limit.
it is time. Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you guys for hanging in. This is a fun topic to explore. I
Thank
think
you for having me.
yeah, anytime, man. I'd love to have you guys on again, at some point. I do this once a week. Or I'm planning on
Hell
doing
yeah.
it once a week, so always keep folks in the pool. I think that if anything, I want these kind of discussions to, I don't know, extend a little bit beyond the three of us talking too, right? Like, I think there's always something to consider about the subject of things that slipped by you that, you may have to adjust your priorities or sensibilities to like fully resonate with, or maybe just, accepting the fact that some things slip by you. And again, I'll bring up that thing about bandwidth, is that you only have so much time, you only have so many hours in the day, that it's impossible to really do that. But like seeing, I think the thing that I took away most from this discussion is I saw like a lot of eyes light up when someone's like, oh, you haven't played that yet, or like, oh, I'm thinking of playing that yet. And it was like that hits the emotional notes for me. So I appreciate you guys being here. If real quick, Dylan, where can we find you on the internet?
I'm primarily on Twitter. I also have a Blue Sky. Both usernames are the same. It is at the Dilla. That is THA_DILA. I should have a link ready when I do this, but
I didn't think about it either. So that's me.
I'll get it in a second.
Here,
but while I'm doing that, other people can.
Yeah, Sunset. What about you, man?
So you can find me 100% on Twitter at Sunset Miami _. Just an underscore after Sunset Miami. Streaming on Twitch. I plan on starting it back up soon.
Hell yeah.
And it's going to be the exact same thing. Going to be the exact same name. So yeah, Sunset Miami _ on Twitch. And that's pretty much it. That's the only thing I ever checked.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm stoked for that, man. I'm stoked for your Mega Man run too, if you ever get around to being able to do it.
if I can not be terrible at it.
Oh, dude, you saw me play. You get the 40% streamer debuff anytime. It's just one of those things that happen.
Every time.
Yeah, man. So I get it. But yeah, thank you guys again. And anyone who enjoyed this, we're doing this weekly. Next week we have Modular and Pretty Cody. So both of those guys do YouTube videos. They long form essays, all that good stuff. Cody whooped my ass in Guilty Gear Strive the other day, like absolutely raw, and like made me feel bad about myself. So but to be fair, he actually knows the game and I don't, but like he's a really good player and he's a good dude overall. And Modular I've never played a video game with, but I'm sure he'll humble me in some way. Great dude. Anyway, thanks again, guys. We're gonna raid the Retro J here. He's playing Shining Force. I just picked somebody doing like an older game. I don't fucking know.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks Trash and Dorman and Julia and everybody else for hanging out in the chat. It's always fun. We wouldn't do this if it weren't for you guys. So, and Sunset and Dylan, thanks again, and we will.
Absolutely,
see you guys
thank
later.
you.
All right, take care, everyone.
Y'all do.